So we are at the March equinox. In a few hours, the center of the sun's disk will cross the celestial equator. That is the definition of equinox. And it is the crossing point where we go from days being longer to days being shorter. So as we cross through that, we do get equal day and night roughly around the equinox. But the real definition has to do with the sun crossing the celestial equator. And the celestial equator in the sky is 90 degrees down from the celestial North Pole, or the North Celestial Pole. And if you're in the northern hemisphere, you can see the North Star. And then 90 degrees down from that is a circle that goes around 90 degrees down from that pole. That's the celestial equator. Or if you're in the southern hemisphere, 90 degrees up from the south celestial pole, the celestial South Pole, which is high in the sky behind me. And you can see it at night here in the southern hemisphere because I'm recording this in Australia. That celestial equator is halfway down, 90 degrees down from the north celestial pole, 90 degrees up from the south celestial pole, and you can find it using Orion's belt. So Orion's belt, and if you want to get more into the celestial mechanics, I recommend my course, Celestial Mechanics and the Myths, which goes into great detail about the celestial mechanics of the solstices and the equinoxes. If you're at all uncomfortable or not completely confident with solstices and equinoxes, that course talks about them in great depth, as well as explaining why they are so critical in the ancient myths found around the world. The world's ancient myths use the solstices and the equinoxes, the solar cycle throughout the year, the relationship between the earth and the sun throughout the year, as a critical framework for what they are dramatizing and trying to convey to us. And that's why the equinoxes and the solstices are so important. Now, I'll briefly also say that what causes the solstices and the equinoxes, that phenomenon of the sun moving from its highest arc in the sky down to its lowest arc in the sky and then back up to its highest arc and crossing as it goes between those two highest and lowest points, it crosses the celestial equator. That is not debatable. That's what happens. It's observable from the earth. The mechanics that cause that to happen, what you get explained to you on Wikipedia or on all the different websites and news snippets that are going to talk about equinox, is going to say, well, it's because as the earth is orbiting the sun, our tilt stays the same, and that's what causes this migration. It could also be caused by the sun moving around the earth. Now, I'm not saying that the sun actually orbits the earth, but the Tychos model proposed by Simon Schach and built upon the model proposed in the 1500s by Tycho Brahe, or Tycho Brahe, the Danish astronomer. The Tychos model argues that the sun and Mars and the solar system, they're interlocked in a different way than the Kepler model. And I've made several videos about that you might want to check out. I'll put the links up in here to check out my discussions with Simon Schach, the originator of the Tychos model, and also some videos that I've made on my own about the Tychos model and how important it may be. I believe that the Tychos model explains a lot of phenomenon that are not explained by the standard Kepler model, including, as we talk about in one of these interviews, the analemma. So throughout the year, if you take a picture of the sun from the same point on the same time every day of the year, with a fixed point for your camera location, the sun will trace out this figure eight. You may have seen the figure eight pattern. And what it's doing is it's moving between its highest point in the sky and its lowest point in the sky. And you're taking a picture of it on its daily arc at one particular time each day. and you don't change for daylight savings time. So you take a picture of the sun, you're capturing its arc, 1 point of the arc every day, and that arc will get to its highest point, it'll go down to its lowest point, and it'll trace out this figure 8, and it will be going halfway between the highest point and the lowest point at the equinoxes. That's not the crossing point of the figure 8 though. That whole analemma, why it makes that, is difficult to explain with the Kepler standard model. And Simon Schack has explained that the analemma itself is a powerful argument for the Tychos model of the solar system. But whatever the gears, however those gears are set up to cause this motion in the sky, the motion in the sky is what we're talking about on the equinox, the sun going between its highest point and its lowest point throughout the year. And that framework, observable from the Earth, whatever the gears behind are doing, and those gears may be set up very differently than we've been taught with the Kepler model, whatever those gears behind the scenes are doing, these phenomena in this solar cycle and the cycles of the moon and the other planets are important components of the world's ancient myths. And I explain that in my online course, Celestial Mechanics and the Myths. And you can see that the world's ancient myths around the world use these celestial cycles. In fact, the literalist Christian celebration of Christmas is geared to the December solstice. And then the Passover and the celebration of Easter are geared to the March equinox. These cycles form the framework for the world's ancient wisdom. Now, that has been hijacked by literalists, particularly literalist monotheists who want to take those stories literally. But we can see that those stories are not literal because the date of the celebration of Easter is geared to this solar cycle, the spring equinox, plus a lunar cycle. So to figure out the date of Passover and the date of Easter requires looking at both the solar cycle with this March equinox and an accompanying lunar cycle. And that shows you right there that they're not celebrating a literal historic event. These ancient myths are built on the framework of the celestial mechanics. Taking them literally is a mistake, and it actually inverts their message and leads to all kinds of distortions that we are now experiencing in our modern world. The ancient wisdom and the ancient myths and the ancient stories have been hijacked by literalists, and we need to go back to that ancient wisdom. And that's what more and more I am convinced that ancient wisdom is so critical right now, even in this very moment, this very present moment in this modern age. And I hope you will check out some of my other videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and take a look at some of my courses. In addition to Celestial Mechanics and the Myths, I have 2 entire courses focusing on the celestial aspects of the stories of the Bible. Celestial Bible Tour Parts 1 and 2. So check those out. There's just abundant evidence in there that I present that the Bible stories are all based on these heavenly cycles, and they are conveying to us very important truths that we need in our lives today. So in a few hours, we'll be going through Equinox. It's a wonderful time to step back, get some perspective on your life, get out to nature if you can, reconnect with yourself, and reconnect with the divine realm, the realm of the gods, all around us and inside of us, just waiting for us. So thank you for joining me this Equinox, March 2025.